From Navajo lands to Atlin's icy gold mine shafts, the Skinwalkers' journey in Canada. Short story number 1. The Miner's Legacy, Chapter 1. Inheritance. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the whispers of the past. Darcy stood at the edge of Atlin Lake, the icy waters reflecting the gray clouds overhead. The letter in his hand, now crumpled from his tight grip, bore the news that had brought him here, the inheritance of an old gold mine, passed down through generations but left untouched for decades. Darcy's grandfather had often spoken of the mine, but always with a hint of fear in his eyes. "There are things in those mountains, Darcy," he'd say, his voice dropping to a hushed tone. "Things older than the mines, older than the tales. Respect them, and they might let you be." Shaking off the memories, Darcy made his way into the town. The wooden buildings, worn by time and weather, gave Atlin a rustic charm. But it was the people that caught his attention. They moved with a quiet caution, their eyes darting to the mountains that loomed in the distance. It was as if the entire town was holding its breath, waiting for something. At the local tavern, Darcy overheard hushed conversations. Words like "skinwalkers," "cursed gold," and "haunted mines" floated to his ears. He approached an old man, his face lined with age and his eyes clouded with cataracts. "You're the one who's inherited the mine, aren't you?" the old man asked before Darcy could speak. Darcy nodded. "I am. I'm Darcy." The old man leaned in, his voice a raspy whisper. "Then you should know the tales. The mines aren't just filled with gold. They're filled with memories, stories, and spirits. The Skinwalkers, they came from the south, from the Navajo lands. They were chased out, hunted, and they found refuge in our mountains. They took to the mines, made them their home." Darcy felt a chill run down his spine. "Are they dangerous?" The old man chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Only if you disrespect them, boy. They were here long before us, and they'll be here long after. Respect their land, their stories, and they might let you be." With a newfound sense of unease, Darcy made his way to the mine the next morning. The entrance was overgrown, the wooden beams weathered and worn. But as he stepped inside, the world outside seemed to fade away. The mine was a labyrinth, its tunnels snaking in all directions. The walls were lined with veins of gold, glinting in the dim light. But it wasn't the gold that caught Darcy's attention. It was the markings. Ancient symbols, etched into the rock, telling tales of skinwalkers, of their journey from the Navajo lands to the icy caverns of Atlin. Of their bond with the land, the gold, and the spirits that resided there. As Darcy ventured deeper into the mine, he felt an eerie connection. The air grew colder, the silence more profound. He could feel the weight of the past pressing down on him, the whispers of the Skinwalkers echoing in his ears. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the mine, extinguishing his lantern. Darcy was plunged into darkness, the blackness absolute. He could hear soft footsteps, the rustling of fabric, and a low, haunting hum. Panicking, Darcy fumbled for his matches, his fingers trembling. As he struck one, the flame revealed a figure standing just a few feet away. It was translucent, its form shifting and changing, its eyes hollow and empty. Darcy stumbled back, his heart racing. The figure moved closer, its form becoming more solid, more real. It was a skinwalker, its face a mask of sorrow and pain. Darcy remembered the old man's words: respect their land, their stories. Taking a deep breath, he bowed his head, showing the Skinwalker a sign of respect. The Skinwalker paused, its gaze fixed on Darcy. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a nod, the Skinwalker vanished, leaving Darcy alone in the mine. Shaken, Darcy made his way out, the weight of the past and the stories of the Skinwalkers heavy on his shoulders. He realized that the mine wasn't just an inheritance. It was a legacy, a testament to the tales of the past and the spirits that resided there. As he stepped out into the daylight, Darcy knew that he had a responsibility: to respect the land, the stories, and the spirits. To ensure that the tales of the Skinwalkers, their journey from the Navajo lands to the icy caverns of Atlin, were never forgotten. And as he looked out over the town, the mountains, and the lake, he felt a deep connection to the land, the stories, and the spirits that called it home. Chapter 2. Delving deep, the sun had barely begun to rise, casting a soft, golden hue over the Atlin district. The birds had started their morning chorus, but the world felt still, as if holding its breath in anticipation. Darcy, with a determined glint in his eye, stood at the entrance of the mine, the old letter from his grandfather clutched in his hand. The tales of the town, the legends of the Skinwalkers, and the eerie encounter from the previous day weighed heavily on his mind. But he was resolute. The mine held secrets, and he was determined to uncover them. With a deep breath, Darcy stepped into the mine. The transition was immediate. The warmth of the sun was replaced by a cold, damp chill, and the chirping of the birds gave way to an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. He lit his lantern, and the flame flickered to life, casting a warm glow that barely penetrated the surrounding darkness. As Darcy ventured deeper, the remnants of past mining operations became evident. Old, rusted tools lay discarded on the ground, their purpose long forgotten. There were pickaxes with splintered handles, shovels with edges dulled from use, and drills that had seen better days. But what caught Darcy's attention were the symbols. Carved into the walls of the mine were intricate symbols that hinted at rituals long forgotten. They were unlike anything Darcy had seen before. Circles intertwined with spirals, triangles surrounded by wavy lines, and other shapes that defied description. They seemed ancient, as if they held the memories of a time long past. Darcy traced his fingers over them, feeling the cold, rough stone beneath his fingertips. The symbols seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and Darcy felt a connection, as if the mine was trying to communicate with him. As he continued his exploration, Darcy became aware of strange noises echoing through the tunnels. At first, he dismissed them as the natural sounds of the mine. But as he listened more closely, they began to take on a more sinister tone. There were whispers, so soft that he could barely make out the words, and distant footsteps that seemed to come from all directions. The atmosphere grew heavy, and Darcy felt a growing sense of unease. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Darcy caught a glimpse of a figure. It was translucent, its form constantly shifting, as if made of smoke or mist. Its eyes, hollow and empty, seemed to bore into Darcy's soul. The memories of the previous day's encounter came flooding back, and Darcy felt a chill run down his spine. But before he could react, the figure vanished, leaving Darcy alone in the oppressive darkness. He tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light or a figment of his imagination, but the feeling of being watched remained. Darcy's thoughts were interrupted by a voice. "You shouldn't be here." He spun around, his lantern casting wild shadows on the walls. Standing before him was Ethan, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "Ethan? What are you doing here?" Darcy asked, his voice trembling. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes darting to the symbols on the walls. "I came to warn you. The mine, it's not safe. There are things here, things that don't want to be disturbed." Darcy frowned. "You mean the Skinwalkers?" Ethan nodded. "They're real, Darcy. And they're not happy that you're here." Darcy took a step back, his mind racing. The tales of the town, the legends of the Skinwalkers, and the eerie encounters in the mine all seemed to converge, forming a tapestry of fear and mystery. "We need to leave," Ethan whispered, his voice filled with urgency. But Darcy was resolute. "I need to know the truth, Ethan. I need to know what happened here." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But we need to be careful. The Skinwalkers are watching." With that, the two men ventured deeper into the mine, the weight of the past and the legends of the Skinwalkers pressing down on them. The mine held secrets, and they were determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. Chapter 3. Nightly visitors. The night had settled over the Atlin district, casting a blanket of darkness that was punctuated only by the twinkling stars overhead. The chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl were the only sounds that broke the stillness. Darcy's camp, set up a short distance from the mine's entrance, was a small oasis of light, with a crackling campfire at its center. Darcy sat by the fire, the warmth of the flames warding off the chill of the night. The events of the day played over in his mind. The symbols in the mine, the translucent figure, and Ethan's warning all combined to create a sense of unease that he couldn't shake off. He tried to dismiss the tales of the Skinwalkers as mere superstitions, but the evidence seemed to suggest otherwise. As the night wore on, Darcy's thoughts were interrupted by a rustling sound coming from the edge of the camp. He strained his ears, trying to pinpoint the source of the noise. It sounded like footsteps, but they were too light, too irregular to be human. Grabbing his lantern, Darcy ventured to the edge of the camp, the light casting eerie shadows on the ground. To his surprise, he found a series of animal tracks leading to and from the mine. They were unlike any he had seen before, a strange combination of human and animal. The tracks were fresh, suggesting that whatever had made them had been there only moments before. A sense of dread settled over Darcy. The tales of the Skinwalkers, of their ability to transform into animals, came flooding back. He remembered the old man's warning: respect their land, their stories. As Darcy pondered the implications of the tracks, a voice called out from the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." Darcy spun around, his lantern illuminating the face of a woman. She was in her late 40s, with raven black hair streaked with gray and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through him. She introduced herself as June, a local who had lived in the Atlin district her entire life. June eyed the tracks with a mixture of fear and resignation. "They've been more active lately," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Skinwalkers. They don't like outsiders, especially those who disturb their land." Darcy, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "You believe in those tales?" June nodded. I've lived here long enough to know that there's truth in the legends. The Skinwalkers are real, and they're not to be trifled with. She went on to share stories of the Skinwalkers, tales passed down through generations. Of their origins in the Navajo lands, their journey to the Atlin district, and their connection to the mine. She spoke of their powers, their rituals, and their need for secrecy. And she warned of the dangers of crossing them, of the consequences of disrespecting their land and their stories. Darcy listened, rapt, as June wove her tales. He was skeptical, but there was a sincerity in her voice, a conviction that was hard to dismiss. And the tracks, the symbols in the mine, and the translucent figure all seemed to suggest that there was more to the legends than mere superstition. As the night wore on, June bid Darcy farewell, leaving him with a final warning. "Be careful," she said, her eyes filled with concern. "The Skinwalkers are watching." Darcy returned to his camp, the weight of June's stories heavy on his mind. He lay in his tent, listening to the sounds of the night, every rustle, every whisper amplifying his sense of unease. But as the hours passed and dawn began to break, Darcy's skepticism returned. He dismissed June's tales as mere folklore, the product of an overactive imagination. The tracks, the symbols, the figure, they could all be explained away. And yet, as he packed up his camp and prepared to venture back into the mine, a nagging doubt remained. The Skinwalkers, with their rituals, their powers, and their connection to the land, were a mystery that Darcy was determined to unravel. But he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, that the mine, with its secrets and stories, was alive, waiting for the right moment to reveal its truths. Chapter 4. The old journal, The Mine's Entrance, loomed before Darcy, its gaping mouth beckoning him into its depths. The morning sun did little to dispel the chill that hung in the air, a reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden within. Darcy took a deep breath, steeling himself for the day's exploration. As he ventured deeper into the mine, the memories of the previous days weighed heavily on his mind. The tracks, June's stories, and the ever-present feeling of being watched all combined to create a sense of unease. But Darcy was determined to uncover the mine's secrets, to separate fact from fiction. His lantern cast a warm glow, illuminating the mine's walls and revealing more of the strange symbols that he had discovered earlier. But it was a small, leather-bound book that caught his attention. Covered in dust and seemingly forgotten, the journal lay nestled between two rocks, its pages yellowed with age. Darcy picked it up, carefully brushing off the dust. The journal's cover was worn, but the words, "Mining Operations, 1,890 inches," were still visible. Intrigued, Darcy began to read. The journal detailed the mining operations of the late 1890s, a time of prosperity and promise. The author, a miner named Samuel, wrote of the excitement of discovering gold, of the camaraderie among the miners, and of the challenges they faced. But as Darcy delved deeper into the journal, a darker narrative began to emerge. Samuel wrote of strange occurrences in the mine, of shadows that seemed to move on their own, of whispers that echoed through the tunnels, and of tracks that appeared overnight. He spoke of the legends of the Skinwalkers, of their ability to transform into animals, and of their connection to the land. And he hinted at their escape from bounty hunters, of their journey from the Navajo lands to the Atlin district, and of their refuge in the mine. But what struck Darcy the most was Samuel's account of the gold. The miner wrote of a strange connection between the gold and the Skinwalkers, of rituals performed deep within the mine, and of the belief that the gold was cursed. Samuel spoke of his growing fear, of his belief that the Skinwalkers were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. As Darcy read, the weight of the journal's revelations pressed down on him. The tales of the town, the legends of the Skinwalkers, and the eerie encounters in the mine all seemed to converge, forming a tapestry of fear and mystery. The line between reality and legend blurred, and Darcy felt a growing sense of unease. That night, as he lay in his tent, nightmares plagued Darcy. He dreamt of the mine, of its dark, winding tunnels, and of the Skinwalkers. He saw them transform, their forms shifting and changing, their eyes hollow and empty. He heard their whispers, their chants, and their footsteps. And he felt their presence, their watchful gaze, and their malevolent intent. Darcy awoke with a start, his heart racing, sweat pouring down his brow. The memories of the dream were fresh, and he struggled to separate reality from the nightmare. The weight of the journal's revelations, combined with the tales of the town and the legends of the Skinwalkers, pressed down on him, creating a sense of dread that he couldn't shake off. As dawn broke, Darcy packed up his camp, the events of the previous days and the revelations of the journal weighing heavily on his mind. He was determined to uncover the mine's secrets, to separate fact from fiction. But the line between reality and legend had blurred, and Darcy couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, that the mine, with its secrets and stories, was alive, waiting for the right moment to reveal its truths. Chapter 5. Unearthly howls. The sun had set, casting the Atlin mining district into a deep, impenetrable darkness. The only light came from the flickering flames of Darcy's campfire, which danced and swayed as if in rhythm with some unseen force. The night was still, the silence broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves or the distant hoot of an owl. But as the hours wore on, a new sound began to emerge. At first, it was faint, barely audible above the crackling of the fire. But slowly, it grew louder, more insistent. It was a howl, long and mournful, echoing through the mountains and valleys of the district. And it was not alone. Soon, other howls joined in, creating a chorus of eerie, otherworldly cries that sent shivers down Darcy's spine. The animals in the vicinity seemed to sense the danger. The birds had stopped their chirping, and the crickets had gone silent. Even Darcy's horse, which he had tethered nearby, was restless, its eyes wide with fear, its ears pricked up, listening intently to the howls. Darcy tried to dismiss the sounds as the cries of wolves or coyotes. But there was something about them that seemed off. They were too long, too mournful, too human. The next morning, as Darcy prepared to venture back into the mine, he made a gruesome discovery. Near the mine's entrance lay the mutilated body of an animal. Its fur was matted with blood, its limbs torn off, its eyes wide with terror. It was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the district, of the legends of the Skinwalkers and their malevolent intent. As Darcy examined the remains, trying to make sense of the carnage, a voice called out to him. It was June, her face pale, her eyes filled with concern. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice trembling. "The howls, they're a warning. The Skinwalkers are restless. They're angry." Darcy frowned. "You believe the howls are from the Skinwalkers?" June nodded. "I've lived here long enough to know the signs. The animals, the howls, the mutilated body. They're all connected. The Skinwalkers are marking their territory, warning us to stay away. Darcy looked back at the mine, the weight of the journal's revelations and the tales of the town pressing down on him. "But I need to know the truth," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I need to know what happened here." June hesitated, then sighed. "All right. But be careful. The Skinwalkers are watching. And they're not happy." With that, she turned and left, leaving Darcy alone with his thoughts. The howls, the mutilated animal, and the legends of the Skinwalkers all seemed to converge, forming a tapestry of fear and mystery. The line between reality and legend had blurred, and Darcy couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, that the mine, with its secrets and stories, was alive, waiting for the right moment to reveal its truths. Determined to uncover the mine's secrets, Darcy ventured deeper into its depths. But with each step, the weight of the legends, the tales of the town, and the eerie encounters pressed down on him, creating a sense of dread that he couldn't shake off. The howls echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, of the Skinwalkers and their malevolent intent. As the hours wore on, Darcy's determination began to waver. The mine seemed to stretch on forever, its tunnels winding and twisting, leading him deeper and deeper into its depths. The howls grew louder, more insistent, as if urging him to turn back, to leave the mine and its secrets behind. But Darcy was resolute. He had come too far to turn back now. He needed to know the truth, to separate fact from fiction, to uncover the mine's secrets and lay its ghosts to rest. And so, with a deep breath, Darcy pressed on, the weight of the legends, the tales of the town, and the eerie encounters pressing down on him, urging him to turn back, to leave the mine and its secrets behind. But Darcy was determined to uncover the truth, to separate fact from fiction, to lay the mine's ghosts to rest. And with each step, he ventured deeper into the mine, into the heart of the mystery, into the realm of the Skinwalkers. Chapter 6. The first encounter. The mine's interior was a labyrinth of winding tunnels and echoing chambers, each turn leading Darcy deeper into the belly of the mountain. The air grew colder, and the weight of the earth above pressed down on him, making every breath a labor. His lantern's light flickered, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on his eyes. As Darcy ventured further, the eerie silence was broken by a soft, rhythmic tapping. It was faint at first, but as he followed the sound, it grew louder, more insistent. The tapping seemed to be coming from one of the side tunnels, and curiosity drove Darcy to investigate. Rounding a bend, he found himself in a large chamber. The walls were lined with old mining tools, and in the center stood a wooden table. On it lay a spread of animal skins, tools, and what appeared to be ritualistic symbols drawn in a dark, red substance. The tapping sound was clearer now, emanating from the far end of the chamber. Darcy approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. As he neared the source of the sound, a figure stepped into the lantern's light. It was tall, its form shifting and shimmering as if caught between two worlds. Its eyes, a deep, soulless black, locked onto Darcy's, and in that moment, he knew he was face to face with a Skinwalker. A tense standoff ensued. The Skinwalker, its form now more defined, took on the appearance of a man, but its eyes and the slight translucence of its skin betrayed its true nature. It circled Darcy, studying him, its gaze never wavering. Darcy could feel its power, its malevolence, and he knew he was in grave danger. Summoning every ounce of courage, Darcy slowly began to back away, keeping his eyes on the creature. But the Skinwalker was faster. In a blur of motion, it lunged at him, its fingers elongating into sharp claws. Darcy dodged just in time, the creature's claws narrowly missing him. The chase was on. Darcy ran, his footsteps echoing through the tunnels, the Skinwalker hot on his heels. Every turn, every twist, the creature was there, its form shifting and changing, adapting to the mine's terrain. Darcy's lungs burned, and his legs felt like lead, but fear drove him on. Finally, seeing a sliver of daylight, Darcy burst out of the mine's entrance, the Skinwalker's enraged howls echoing behind him. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of the town. Breathing heavily, Darcy tried to make sense of what had just happened. He had come face to face with a legend, a creature of nightmares, and had lived to tell the tale. But the encounter had left him with more questions than answers. What was the Skinwalker doing in the mine? What was the significance of the ritualistic symbols? And why had it let him go? Word of Darcy's encounter spread quickly, and the town was abuzz with whispers and rumors. The mine, once a symbol of prosperity and hope, was now viewed with fear and suspicion. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones of the Skinwalkers, of their powers, and of their connection to the mine. Some called for the mine to be sealed, while others spoke of forming a posse to hunt down the creature. Darcy, still shaken from his encounter, knew he had a decision to make. The mine held answers, but it also held dangers. The Skinwalkers were real, and they were watching. But Darcy was determined to uncover the truth, to separate fact from fiction, to lay the mine's ghosts to rest. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of purpose, Darcy prepared to venture back into the mine, to face the Skinwalkers once more, and to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its depths. The town watched with bated breath, knowing that the fate of the mine, and perhaps their very lives, hung in the balance. Chapter 7. Seeking answers, the town's library was a modest building, its wooden walls lined with shelves that groaned under the weight of countless books and manuscripts. Darcy entered, the door creaking softly behind him. The dim light filtering through the dusty windows gave the room an air of antiquity, and the musty scent of old paper filled his nostrils. He began his search in the local history section, pulling out volumes that spoke of the Atlin district's past. As he delved into the pages, he was drawn into tales of gold rushes, pioneering spirits, and the indomitable will of those who called this rugged land home. But it was the legends of the Skinwalkers that captivated him the most. Accounts of shape-shifting beings, of rituals and curses, and of a connection between the gold and these ethereal creatures filled the pages. As Darcy was engrossed in his reading, a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "You're looking into the Skinwalker legends, aren't you?" The voice belonged to a middle-aged woman with sharp, inquisitive eyes and a demeanor that spoke of wisdom and experience. She introduced herself as Louise, a historian who had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of the Atlin district. Darcy, sensing a kindred spirit, shared his encounter in the mine. Louise listened intently, her eyes widening with a mix of fear and fascination. "The Skinwalkers have always been a part of this land's lore," she began. "But few have come as close to them as you have." The two formed an immediate alliance, bound by their shared curiosity and determination to uncover the truth. Louise's extensive research complemented Darcy's first-hand experience, and together they delved deeper into the legends. Louise led Darcy to a secluded section of the library, where ancient manuscripts and tribal records were kept. These, she whispered reverently, hold the key to understanding the Skinwalkers. They pored over the texts, deciphering old tribal languages and piecing together fragmented accounts. It was in one such manuscript that they stumbled upon a revelation. Detailed within were rituals performed by the indigenous tribes of the region, designed to ward off malevolent spirits, including the Skinwalkers. The rituals spoke of specific chants, sacred herbs, and ceremonial dances, all aimed at protecting the tribe from the Skinwalkers' wrath. Louise's eyes sparkled with excitement. This could be it, Darcy. The means to protect the town and perhaps even communicate with the Skinwalkers to understand their intentions. Darcy, while hopeful, remained cautious. These rituals haven't been performed in over a century. We don't know if they'll still hold power against the Skinwalkers. Louise nodded in agreement. True, but it's a start. And right now, it's the best lead we have. The duo spent the following days preparing. They gathered the necessary herbs, studied the chants, and practiced the ceremonial dances. The town, initially skeptical, began to rally behind them, the hope of a solution rekindling their spirits. One evening, as the sun set and cast the Atlin district in a golden hue, Darcy and Louise, accompanied by a few brave townsfolk, made their way to the mine's entrance. With the rituals in hand and determination in their hearts, they were ready to face the Skinwalkers, to seek answers, and to protect their town from the looming threat. As the first chant echoed through the air and the ceremonial dance began, the atmosphere grew charged. The ground seemed to hum, the wind carried whispers, and the very fabric of reality seemed to thin. Whether the rituals would succeed in warding off the Skinwalkers or open a doorway to further mysteries, only time would tell. But one thing was certain. Darcy and Louise were at the forefront of a battle that would determine the fate of the Atlin district and its people. Chapter 8. Protective measures. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape of the Atlin district. The entrance to the mine loomed ominously, a dark maw in the mountainside. Darcy and Louise stood before it, armed with knowledge, determination, and an array of sacred objects. Louise carefully laid out a pattern of turquoise stones around the perimeter of the mine's entrance. The vibrant blue stones, believed to possess protective properties, glinted in the waning sunlight. Darcy, meanwhile, hung intricately crafted silver amulets on the wooden beams supporting the entrance. Silver, with its purifying qualities, was said to repel malevolent spirits. As they worked, the duo recited chants from the ancient manuscripts, their voices harmonizing and resonating through the still air. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation, and a palpable energy seemed to emanate from the ground itself. With the protective measures in place, Darcy and Louise lit a ceremonial fire, its flames dancing and crackling, casting an eerie glow on their faces. They threw in bundles of sage, filling the air with its pungent aroma. The smoke spiraled upwards, forming intricate patterns against the darkening sky. As the night deepened, the duo noticed a significant change. The oppressive aura that had once surrounded the mine seemed to have lifted. The nocturnal cries of the Skinwalkers, which had once echoed hauntingly through the district, were conspicuously absent. It appeared that their protective measures were working. However, the relief was short-lived. While the immediate vicinity of the mine felt safer, distant howls and eerie sightings reported by the townsfolk indicated that the Skinwalkers were still active, perhaps even agitated by the duo's actions. Louise, her brow furrowed in thought, turned to Darcy. The rituals and the sacred objects have created a protective barrier around the mine, but it's not enough. The Skinwalkers are ancient, powerful beings. To truly ensure the safety of the town, we need to confront them, to understand their intentions and find a way to coexist. Darcy nodded in agreement. We've taken the first step by protecting the mine, but the real challenge lies ahead. We need to venture deeper, to the heart of their territory, and face them head-on. The decision was made. Armed with their research, the sacred objects, and a burning desire to protect their town, Darcy and Louise prepared for the most perilous part of their journey. They gathered supplies, studied the manuscripts for any clues or strategies, and rallied a group of brave townsfolk to accompany them. The night of the confrontation arrived. The moon, full and luminous, bathed the district in a silvery glow. Darcy, Louise, and their team stood at the entrance of the mine, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. With a deep breath, they ventured into the mine, the darkness enveloping them like a shroud. The tunnels echoed with their footsteps, and every shadow seemed to hide potential danger. But the group pressed on, guided by the flickering light of their lanterns and the knowledge that they were the town's last hope. Hours felt like days as they navigated the labyrinthine tunnels. And then, in a vast underground chamber, they came face to face with the Skinwalkers. The creatures, caught between their human and animal forms, regarded the intruders with a mix of curiosity and hostility. A tense standoff ensued. Louise stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the Skinwalkers, speaking of peace, coexistence, and the need to protect the town. The Skinwalkers, their eyes reflecting centuries of wisdom and pain, listened intently. The outcome of the confrontation was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Darcy and Louise had taken the first step towards understanding the Skinwalkers and forging a new path for the Atlin district. The battle between man and legend had begun, and its outcome would shape the future of the town and its people. Chapter 9. Into the abyss, the mine's entrance seemed to swallow them whole as Darcy and Louise ventured deeper into its depths. The lanterns they carried cast a feeble glow, barely piercing the oppressive darkness. Every step echoed ominously, and the weight of the mountain above pressed down on them, making the air thick and hard to breathe. As they delved further, the mine began to play tricks on their minds. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on grotesque shapes and forms. Whispers echoed through the tunnels, their origins impossible to pinpoint. Louise paused, her eyes darting around. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Darcy nodded, trying to mask his own unease. "It's the mine. It's playing tricks on us. We need to stay focused." But as they continued, the illusions grew more intense. They saw figures darting in and out of their peripheral vision, heard cries of distress, and felt unseen hands brush against their skin. The line between reality and illusion blurred, making it hard to trust their senses. In a particularly narrow passage, a sudden gust of wind extinguished their lanterns, plunging them into complete darkness. Panic surged through Darcy as he fumbled for matches. "Louise?" he called out, but there was no response. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. They were separated. Louise, meanwhile, found herself in a vast chamber, the walls of which seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling her ears with a cacophony of voices. She felt disoriented, her sense of direction completely skewed. As she tried to find her bearings, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and translucent, its form constantly shifting. A skinwalker. Louise's heart raced as she backed away, but the creature advanced, its intentions clear. Desperate, Louise fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a silver amulet, one of the protective charms they had prepared. Holding it out in front of her, she began to recite one of the chants they had learned. The skinwalker hesitated, its form flickering as if caught in a storm. The chant grew louder, more forceful, and the skinwalker let out a guttural cry, retreating into the shadows. The protective charm had worked, but Louise knew she wasn't safe yet. She needed to find Darcy and get out of the mine. Darcy, having managed to relight his lantern, was frantically searching for Louise. The illusions continued to torment him, but he pushed through, calling out for her. Their voices eventually reached each other, and the two were reunited in a tearful embrace. "We need to get out of here," Louise whispered, her voice shaky. "This place, it's alive. It's trying to break us." Darcy nodded, gripping her hand tightly. "Together. We'll make it out together." The duo retraced their steps, the protective charms and their sheer determination shielding them from the mine's malevolent influence. The journey back to the surface felt like an eternity, but they finally emerged, the first light of dawn greeting them. Exhausted but alive, Darcy and Louise looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They had faced the abyss and come out the other side, their bond stronger than ever. But the mine's mysteries were far from over, and they knew they would have to return, better prepared and ready to face whatever lay in wait. Chapter 10. The Skinwalker's lair. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale golden hue over the Atlin district. The events of the previous night weighed heavily on Darcy's mind. The mine, with its endless tunnels and dark secrets, beckoned him. He felt an inexplicable pull, a need to uncover the truth about the Skinwalkers and their connection to the town. Armed with a lantern and a few protective charms, Darcy ventured back into the mine. The familiar chill of the underground tunnels enveloped him, but he pressed on, driven by a mix of curiosity and determination. Hours seemed to pass as he navigated the labyrinthine passages. Just when he was about to turn back, a faint glow caught his eye. Following it, Darcy found himself in a vast chamber, the walls of which were adorned with intricate carvings and symbols. The glow emanated from a series of torches, illuminating the center of the room where a large stone altar stood. Around the altar were relics from a bygone era. Old mining tools, faded photographs, and personal belongings, all dating back to the 1890s. But what caught Darcy's attention were the skins. Animal skins, meticulously preserved and displayed, each telling a story of transformation and power. As he examined the relics, the weight of the Skinwalker's history pressed down on him. These were not just legends. They were a part of the town's fabric, intertwined with its people and its past. Lost in his thoughts, Darcy failed to notice the figure that emerged from the shadows. Tall and imposing, with eyes that seemed to pierce his very soul, it was the leader of the Skinwalkers. The air grew thick with tension as the two locked eyes, a silent standoff that felt like an eternity. The Skinwalker leader, in a voice that was both guttural and melodic, spoke. "You trespass on sacred ground, human. Why have you come?" Darcy, summoning all his courage, replied, "I seek answers. The town deserves to know the truth." A low growl emanated from the Skinwalker leader. "The truth? The truth is that we were here long before your kind. We were driven from our lands, hunted, and forced to seek refuge in these tunnels. And now you come, seeking to uncover our secrets?" Darcy, realizing the depth of the Skinwalker's pain and anger, tried to reason with the leader. "I understand your anger, but the town is in danger. We need to find a way to coexist." The Skinwalker leader, his eyes narrowing, moved closer to Darcy. "Coexist? After all the harm your kind has done?" Just when it seemed that all was lost, Darcy remembered the protective charm Louise had given him. Clutching it tightly, he began to recite the chant they had learned. The Skinwalker leader recoiled, the power of the charm pushing him back. Seizing the opportunity, Darcy made a run for it, the Skinwalker leader's enraged cries echoing behind him. The tunnels, which had once seemed so confusing, now guided him back to the surface. Emerging into the daylight, Darcy took a moment to catch his breath. The weight of what he had discovered, the depth of the Skinwalkers' history, and the confrontation with their leader weighed heavily on him. But one thing was clear. He had a responsibility to protect the town. The Skinwalkers, with their pain and anger, were a force to be reckoned with. But with knowledge, understanding, and the right protective measures, Darcy believed that they could find a way to coexist. With renewed determination, he made his way back to the town, ready to share his findings and rally the community to face the challenges ahead. Chapter 11. Rallying the town hall of Atlin district stood tall and imposing, its wooden structure bearing the marks of time. Inside, the room was abuzz with chatter, the townsfolk gathered in anticipation of the meeting Darcy had called. Darcy, standing at the front, cleared his throat, signaling for silence. The murmurs died down, all eyes on him. Beside him, Louise offered a reassuring nod, her presence a pillar of strength. "I've called you all here today to share something of grave importance," Darcy began, his voice steady despite the weight of his revelations. "I've ventured deep into the mines and have come face to face with the legends that have haunted our town for generations, the Skinwalkers." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Some exchanged skeptical glances, while others leaned in, their interest piqued. Darcy continued, recounting his experiences in vivid detail, the relics from the 1890s, the confrontation with the Skinwalker leader, and the undeniable evidence of their existence. As he spoke, the atmosphere in the room grew thick with tension, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Louise stepped forward, adding her voice to the narrative. "The Skinwalkers are not just legends. They are a part of our town's history, and we must find a way to coexist." As the duo concluded their account, the room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Some townsfolk shared their own encounters, tales of eerie howls in the night, and unexplained occurrences that now made sense in light of Darcy's revelations. However, not everyone was convinced. A faction of skeptics, led by a burly miner named Jed, voiced their doubts. "Tales and legends," Jed scoffed. "You expect us to believe in old wives' tales? This is just a ploy to scare us away from the mines." The division in the room was palpable. On one side, those who had experienced the Skinwalkers' presence firsthand and believed in the need for action. On the other, skeptics who dismissed the tales as mere superstitions. Darcy, sensing the need to unite the town, spoke up. Whether you believe or not, the fact remains that there is something in those minds. We need to come together, not as believers or skeptics, but as a community. Louise chimed in. We've discovered old rituals that can protect us and ward off the Skinwalkers. But we need the town's support. Together, we can confront this threat and ensure the safety of our people. The room fell silent, the weight of the decision pressing down on everyone. After what felt like an eternity, an elderly woman named Agnes stood up. I've lived in this town my whole life, she began, her voice quivering with emotion. I've heard the howls, seen the shadows. I stand with Darcy and Louise. One by one, others began to voice their support, the momentum shifting in favor of action. Even Jed, though still skeptical, conceded, fine. Let's see what these rituals can do. With the town rallied behind them, Darcy and Louise began to lay out their plan. They would gather at the mine's entrance at dusk, armed with the protective charms and rituals they had learned. Together, they would confront the Skinwalkers, seeking a resolution that would ensure the safety of the town and honor the legends of the past. As the meeting concluded, the townsfolk dispersed, a mix of determination and apprehension in the air. The stage was set for a final confrontation, the outcome of which would shape the future of the Atlin district and its people. Chapter 12. Preparations. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the town of Atlin district. The usually bustling streets were eerily quiet, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and fear. The impending confrontation with the Skinwalkers weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Darcy and Louise, understanding the gravity of the situation, wasted no time in their preparations. They set up a makeshift base in the town hall, transforming it into a hub of activity. Tables were laden with weapons, guns, knives, and more traditional tools like silver-tipped arrows and spears. Alongside these were protective charms, amulets, and herbs, each with its own purpose in the battle against the supernatural. Louise, with her knowledge of the town's history and legends, took charge of gathering information. She pored over old texts, maps, and journals, seeking any advantage they could use against the Skinwalkers. Knowledge is our greatest weapon, she often said, emphasizing the importance of understanding their adversary. Darcy, on the other hand, focused on training. A group of brave volunteers, men and women from various backgrounds, had stepped forward, willing to face the unknown. They were a motley crew: miners, farmers, shopkeepers, and even a few youngsters, their determination shining in their eyes. Training sessions were intense. Darcy drilled the volunteers in combat techniques, teaching them how to use the weapons effectively. They practiced formations, strategies, and even rehearsed potential scenarios. Louise, with her expertise, educated them about the Skinwalkers, their habits, strengths, and weaknesses. She also instructed them in the use of the protective charms, ensuring that each volunteer was equipped to ward off any supernatural threats. As days turned into nights, the town's atmosphere grew even tenser. Whispers filled the air, stories of eerie howls, and fleeting shadows seen at the edge of the forest. Fearful of potential attacks, nightly patrols were set up. Groups of volunteers, armed and vigilant, roamed the streets, their lanterns casting a warm glow in the cold darkness. One evening, as Darcy and Louise were overseeing the preparations, Agnes approached them. The elderly woman, with her years of wisdom, had become a valuable ally. "I found something," she said, handing Louise a tattered journal. "It belonged to my great-grandfather. He wrote about his encounters with the Skinwalkers." Louise carefully leafed through the pages, her eyes widening with every passage. This could be invaluable," she murmured, sharing her findings with Darcy. The journal detailed rituals, chants, and even locations that could be of strategic importance. The duo realized that with this newfound knowledge, they had a fighting chance. The final confrontation was drawing near, and they were as prepared as they could be. As the sun set on another day, the town of Atlin district braced itself. The night was filled with uncertainty, but there was also hope, a hope that with unity, courage, and determination, they could face the darkness and emerge victorious. Chapter 13. The battle begins. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the town of Atlin district. The streets, usually silent at this hour, were alive with the sounds of hushed conversations and the clinking of weapons. The nightly patrols had become a routine, with volunteers taking turns to guard the town against any potential threats. Suddenly, a chilling howl pierced the night, echoing through the streets and sending shivers down the spines of the townsfolk. Before anyone could react, shadows emerged from the darkness, moving with unnatural speed. The Skinwalkers had launched a surprise attack. The town erupted into chaos. The Skinwalkers, in their various animal forms, lunged at the volunteers, their eyes glowing with malevolence. The volunteers, though taken aback, fought back valiantly. Bullets flew, arrows were loosed, and the air was filled with the sounds of battle. Darcy, wielding a silver-tipped spear, fended off a skinwalker in the form of a massive wolf. With a swift move, he managed to wound the creature, forcing it to retreat. Beside him, Louise chanted incantations, her voice steady and powerful, causing some of the skinwalkers to hesitate in their tracks. However, the sheer number of skinwalkers was overwhelming. Despite their best efforts, the volunteers suffered losses. Some were injured, while others were dragged away into the darkness, their fates unknown. Realizing that they needed to act fast, Darcy and Louise made a bold decision. "We need to confront their leader," Darcy shouted over the din of battle. "It's the only way to end this." Gathering a group of the bravest volunteers, the duo led them towards the mine, the heart of the Skinwalker territory. The entrance loomed ahead, an ominous black void. Taking a deep breath, they ventured inside. The mine was a labyrinth of tunnels, the walls echoing with the sounds of distant growls and whispers. Guided by the dim light of their lanterns, the group moved cautiously, aware that danger lurked around every corner. After what felt like hours, they reached a vast chamber. At the center stood the Skinwalker leader, a tall, imposing figure with piercing eyes. Around him, other Skinwalkers watched, their forms shifting between human and animal. A tense standoff ensued. The Skinwalker leader, with a voice that seemed to come from the depths of the earth, spoke, "Why have you come here, humans?" Darcy stepped forward, his voice firm. "We seek an end to this conflict. The town of Atlin district deserves to live in peace." The leader sneered, "Peace? After what your kind did to us? Chased us from our lands, hunted us for sport, there can be no peace. Louise, drawing upon her knowledge, began to recite an ancient chant, one she had discovered in Agnes's great-grandfather's journal. The words resonated through the chamber, causing the Skinwalkers to falter. Sensing an opportunity, Darcy and the volunteers launched their attack. The battle inside the mine was fierce and brutal. Every strike, every move was a dance between life and death. But with Louise's chants and the protective charms, the group managed to gain an advantage. One by one, the Skinwalkers were defeated, their forms dissolving into mist. The leader, seeing his forces diminish, let out a roar of rage. With a speed that belied his size, he lunged at Darcy. The two grappled, locked in a deadly embrace. Just when it seemed that the leader would overpower Darcy, Louise, with a final, powerful incantation, managed to bind the creature, rendering him immobile. With the leader defeated, the remaining Skinwalkers fled, disappearing into the depths of the mine. Exhausted but victorious, Darcy, Louise, and the volunteers made their way back to the town. The battle was over, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would remain. The town of Atlin district had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger. The tales of bravery, sacrifice, and unity would be passed down through generations, a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. Chapter 14. The heart of darkness. The mine's entrance loomed ominously, a gaping maw leading into the very bowels of the earth. The air was thick with tension as Darcy and Louise, armed with their knowledge and weapons, prepared to venture deep into the heart of darkness. The tunnels were a maze, winding and twisting in every direction. The walls were damp, and the air was cold, sending shivers down their spines. Every step echoed, and the silence was deafening, broken only by the distant drip of water. As they delved deeper, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. The weight of the mountain above them was palpable, and the darkness seemed to close in from all sides. But the duo pressed on, driven by determination and the knowledge that the final confrontation was at hand. Suddenly, the narrow tunnel opened up into a vast cavern. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like jagged teeth, and the ground was littered with sharp rocks. At the center of the cavern stood the Skinwalker leader, his form shifting and shimmering in the dim light. His eyes, glowing with an otherworldly light, fixed on Darcy and Louise. The standoff was tense. The leader, with a voice that seemed to echo from the very walls of the cavern, spoke, "You dare to enter my domain? You think you can defeat me?" Darcy, his voice steady, replied, "We're here to end this. The town deserves peace, and we won't leave until we ensure it." With a roar, the leader lunged at them. The battle that ensued was intense. The leader, with his supernatural strength and speed, seemed to be everywhere at once. But Darcy and Louise, using their knowledge and the tools they had gathered, managed to hold their own. Louise, drawing upon the rituals and chants she had learned, began to recite an incantation. The words, powerful and ancient, seemed to reverberate through the cavern. The Skinwalker leader faltered, his form flickering as if he was being torn apart by the very fabric of reality. Seizing the opportunity, Darcy lunged, managing to wound the leader with a silver-tipped arrow. The leader howled in pain, his form shifting rapidly between human and animal. The battle raged on, with both sides using every ounce of their strength. Just when it seemed that the leader would overpower them, Louise, with a final, powerful chant, managed to bind the creature, rendering him immobile. The leader, trapped and defeated, let out a final, mournful howl before dissolving into mist, leaving behind only the echoes of his presence. Exhausted but victorious, Darcy and Louise took a moment to catch their breath. The immediate threat was over, but they knew that the battle was far from won. The Skinwalkers, though leaderless, still lurked in the shadows, and the town would always need to be vigilant. But for now, they had achieved a significant victory. The Heart of Darkness had been confronted and defeated, and the town of Atlin district could breathe a little easier. As they made their way out of the mine, the first rays of dawn began to light up the sky. A new day was dawning, bringing with it hope and the promise of a brighter future. Chapter 15. Aftermath. The sun rose over Atlin district, casting a warm golden hue over the town. But the beauty of the dawn was overshadowed by the somber mood that hung in the air. The streets, usually bustling with activity, were quiet, save for the occasional murmur of hushed conversations. Homes and businesses displayed black ribbons, a symbol of mourning for those who had been lost in the battle against the Skinwalkers. But amidst the grief, there was also a sense of pride. The town had faced an unimaginable threat and had emerged victorious. At the town square, a memorial had been set up. Names of the fallen were etched on a stone plaque, a permanent reminder of their sacrifice. People gathered, laying flowers and lighting candles in their memory. Tears flowed freely, but so did stories of bravery and heroism. Darcy stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes fixed on the plaque. The weight of the responsibility he had shouldered weighed heavily on him. He had led the charge against the Skinwalkers, and while they had won, the cost had been high. Beside him, Louise was lost in thought. She had documented the events, interviewing townsfolk, and gathering first-hand accounts. Her notes would serve as a testament to the town's resilience and the legend of the Skinwalkers. After paying their respects, the duo made their way to the mine. The entrance, once a symbol of hope and prosperity, now stood as a reminder of the darkness that lay beneath. Darcy, with a heavy heart, decided it was time to seal the mine. "We need to respect their history," he said, looking at Louise. "The Skinwalkers were here long before us. This is their land, their home. We need to let them rest." Louise nodded in agreement. "The stories need to be remembered, but we also need to move forward." With the help of the townsfolk, the entrance to the mine was sealed. Stones were piled high, and rituals were performed to ensure that the Skinwalkers would remain undisturbed. As the final stone was placed, Darcy and Louise stood hand in hand, looking at the sealed entrance. "It's over," Darcy whispered, a sense of relief washing over him. Louise squeezed his hand. "Yes, but the stories will live on. The legend of the Skinwalkers will never be forgotten." The duo decided it was time to leave Atlin. They had done what they had set out to do, and now it was time to move on to new adventures. But as they left, they knew that the town would forever hold a special place in their hearts. The town of Atlin district slowly returned to normalcy. The events of the past were spoken of in hushed tones, a mix of awe and reverence. Children would gather around campfires, listening wide-eyed to the tales of the Skinwalkers and the brave townsfolk who had stood up to them. And so, while Darcy and Louise moved on, the legend of the Skinwalkers remained, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the town and its people. The stories would be passed down through generations, a reminder of the past and a beacon of hope for the future. We hope you have enjoyed our paranormal scary story about skinwalkers in the Atlin district of Northwest British Columbia, Canada. Please visit us at Paranormal Untold Stories. Come to listen to more of our scary stories collection. Paranormal Untold Stories encourages you to contact us if you have your own untold story that you would like our professionals team to put online as a scary story. Thank you. Please follow our YouTube channel, Paranormal Untold Stories, and encourage others to do the same. Paranormal Untold Stories.